Throughout this presentation, we're going to need for you to pay close attention to 3-letter, 4-letter acronyms, the understanding of each one of them, and take notes during this presentation, please, because at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to ask your area managers questions that you may have, and if they cannot answer them, they will definitely get to the assistant directors, and or if we need to pull in ESE staff to make sure we answer all your questions during this presentation. Thank you. On this slide presentation, let's talk about definitions. First of all, IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. IEP, Individual Education Plan. LRE, Least Restrictive Environment. FAPE, Free and Appropriate Education. Parents Transport, curb-to-curb service, does not mean door-to-door. We transport from private schools. We transport extracurricular activities. We transport to daycare, and we even have students in extended day that we transport students from school to school for extended day under the special circumstances. TARS, Transportation as a Related Service. Behavior Management, Disability Awareness, FBA, Functional Behavior Assessments, BIP plans. Remember these words throughout these presentations. Thank you. What is an individual educational program? I am not going to read this information to you. I am just going to reference that within our school district setting, there's a team made up of educational professionals to include transportation depending upon the student's needs to develop an IEP, Individual Educational Plan. I'm going to give you 1 minute to read through this information. Thank you. The next slide talks about least restrictive environment. Again, I will not read through each one of them. I will give you the 1 minute time for you to read through it, but I want you to pay special attention to a child should be with kids in general education to maximize the extent that is appropriate. Appropriate refers to what is most suitable for the child. Now remember, we're talking about least restrictive environment for an IEP, that particular student's educational plan. I will give you 1 minute to read through this entire presentation. Thank you. Thank you. This slide talks about what is IDEA. Again, I am not going to read the entire slide to you, but please pay attention. IDEA is designed to ensure that the rights of children with disabilities and parents of such children are protected. Again, I will give you 1 minute to read through this slide. While you're reading through this particular slide on IDEA, please keep in mind what it is designed to do. This is a continuation slide of IDEA. Gives you when Congress reauthorize the IDEA and the laws. I'm going to also give you about a half a minute to read through this one. And please pay attention to the last bullet point. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of the national policy. It's also an essential element of our district policy. Thank you. Our next slide presentation talks about transportation according to IDEA. It talks about the least restrictive environment, LEA. It talks about transportation for qualifying students as it relates to support services. It talks about FAPE, free and appropriate education, TARS, transportation as a related services. When you talk about transportation, it includes travel to and from and around and between learning environments. That's where it goes back to our initial first page where we identified the private school, the extracurricular activities, daycare, extended stay, field study trips. Again, I won't read the entire slide page to you, but again, if you have any questions or concern, please write them down and we will address them at the end of the presentation. We're most familiar in transportation with specialized equipment, car seat, harness, walkers, wheelchairs. We are most concerned or most aware of accommodations. Some students have AC requirement, visual aids, and VAT, hearing aids, monitors, interpreters. These all come under services that are covered by IDEA. TARS, Transportation as a Related Services. Again, I'm going to give you the 1 minute to read this slide presentation, but please note students with disabilities are entitled to any transportation that is provided for non-disabled students. Keep in mind also while reading this slide presentation, the IEP teams determines the need for TARS, transportation as a related service. That determination is done case by case, student by student. Thank you. TARS obligations for students without disabilities. The rules for non-disabled students are governed by state laws and school board policy. For example, we currently don't transport students within the walk zone. We may or may not transport students depending upon the variances. Thank you. Let's talk about allowable TARs. When transportation is a related services, it has to meet certain criteria. Based on a student's need, may be assigned a bus aid, bus monitor. Based on its needs, it may be assigned curb to curb. Once again, not necessarily door to door, because the meaning of both is different. We have students that are identified for extended year, our summer school program. They have medical conditions, medical equipment, shortened school day due to their disability, and students may also attend in a neighboring school district if our school district cannot meet their needs. Parental transportation basis. We do have parents within our district that opt to transport their students for whatever the reason may be. We do have parents in our district that transport students because we cannot provide the services to get the students to and from school. And in our district, we call that isolated transportation, where we pay parents to transport their students to and from school. Again, I'm not going to read the entire slide to you, but I will give you 1 minute again to read through it. And if you have any questions, once again, please write them down and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So let's talk about curb to curb. Remember in this presentation, I said curb to curb is not the same as door to door. So let's talk about curb to curb. Considerations when curb to curb is discussed during a student's IEP: the student's age, the nature of the disability, can a bus get to a student stop, is the access to the student requirement, and is there other modes of transportation that can better serve a student. Least restrictive environment. Least restricted environment, from the least to the most. If you've been in transportation for a while, you know that we have what, in our terminology, on our regular buses, regular ed students, along with ESE students, our special need population. That's the least restrictive environment that we provide services for. The most restrictive environment, technically, we do not provide that, because we, even on what we call our special need buses, we put regular ed populations on with our special needs populations. When I'm talking about our wheelchair buses, and depending upon the student's need and what's best for the students, including our regular population and our special needs population, that's determined a lot on how students interact with each other. Again, I'll give you 1 minute to read through this information. And once again, if you have any questions, please save it for the end. Thank you. TARS. Transportation is a related service for private schools, daycare, extended day, and extracurricular. Least restricted environment is responsible for providing transportation to any activities that are necessary for a child to receive safe, free, and appropriate education. Least restricted environment is not required to provide transportation to and from daycare, extended day programs. Least LEA is not required to provide transportation to private charter schools. LEA is responsible for transportation to extracurricular activities only if the activity is necessary for the provision of free and appropriate education. Transportation for the activity is provided to non-disabled students. That gives them equality. Again, if you have any questions, save them and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. Students with disabilities in a pre-K and has TARS. All pre-K students with TARS get these two accommodations within our districts. aid or monitor, medical equipment, safety seat, harness. Keep in mind, baby seats are required by law. Now, if I have a pre-K student with a disability that has to have a chest plate to hold them up, a special type of harness, now it becomes medical necessary. I have a pre-K student that we have to transport in a stroller or a wheelchair. That's medical equipment. Baby seats, we have to transport them pre-K students in. Does not qualify for medical equipment, but still in our district may require an aid or a monitor. Thank you. The word we deal with in our district, whether it's regular education or special education, behavior management for the bus. In our district, we practice CHAMP strategies. Later on, you'll get information on de-escalation strategies. Some of our students within our district have BIP plans, behavior intervention plans, and some have them where they must be implemented on school buses. During the course of this presentation, especially with our special needs population, you'll get strategies. Hopefully you'll learn strategies, verbal reprimand, talking to parents about the needs of their students, temporary seating assignments, because those of us in this room that have had history with students, we recognize that not all students can sit or be in the same zone with other students. As you transport our precious cargo, you will learn that about our students within our districts. And some students react to rewards, incentives. And if you talk to individuals within your group, they'll tell you some of their stories that they've experienced with the students. Thank you. Disability awareness. We set up within our district on all our reporting to give you what our district calls, we call it the alphabet codes, but those codes mean something for different type of students. This information is also in your procedure manual, what different students' classifications means. First and foremost, students with disabilities are people first and face some unique challenges related to the disability. I won't read all of this to you, but I will give you 1 minute to read it. And again, if you have questions about identifying the needs of the students you transport, please, we have ESE teams in all areas, all over our district. Please get with someone to help you. And if you cannot get the help that you're looking for, please contact your area manager or your ADs. Thank you. Before I go to the next slide, just remember, you are a part of a team that cares about students. Again, this is the continuation of disability awareness, and I'm going to give you about a half a minute to read this slide. Just keep in mind that it's real important to know your students that you transport, to get to know the students that you transport. Thank you. Again, as you look at disability awareness, I cannot emphasize enough to you to know your students, to get to know your students, to get to know the uniqueness of your students, especially in that special education arena. Again, I'll give you about 30 seconds to finish reading this slide presentation. And once again, if you have any questions or concerns, please write them down and we will address them. What is a behavior intervention plan? BIP. Not all special needs population students have what we call a BIP plan. If you're experiencing one of your students as you get to know them while you're covering your route and it just does not make sense to you, follow that intuition. Ask questions about a student. There's schools have, especially when we talk about our EBD population, there's staff available at schools in the bus loop. Ask them about your students. If you don't get the answers that you're looking for, or you don't understand or doesn't process, by all means, visit your area manager's office. Visit your lead driver trainer's office. Visit your AD office. But in the times that we're living in right now with COVID, please make an appointment. I give you about 30 more seconds to finish reading this information. Thank you. I need you to pay attention to the last three bullets on this presentation. We're now working hard with our routing department and our district ESC department to identify those students with BIP plans. We're putting this information on your student detail reports. We're trying to get this information in ESC comments so that when you pull any listings, whether it's in VEO now or our dispatch have to give you any information, it will identify students that have BIP plans as it relates to transportation. That feature is coming soon. Thank you. So in summary, with this presentation, students with disability are people first, and they do face unique challenges. Unique challenges. The school bus operator and attendant should know the characteristics of students with disabilities. Volusia County School District is required to provide specialized transportation. Once again, we cannot stress for you to get to know your students. Get to know your students with their disabilities. Get to know the triggers of your students with disabilities. And again, if you have any questions or concerns about the students you transport, please get with your area offices. I thank you for listening to this presentation and have a great, safe school year. Thank you.